Good day once again, Spokane. My name is Councilmember Mike Fagan. I represent Northeast Spokane District 1. Welcome to this month's Council Connection. And as well, we're going to call it a Council Update, because what you're going to see today, two parts. First off, we are just excited to announce a wonderful update involving tiny home concept, tiny home communities, things to that effect. Second half of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about what the City Council just passed in falsifying a service animal and what the City Council's intent was and how that's going to benefit the disability community. So first up, we're going to be talking to a gentleman that you've seen on previous Council Connections here with myself, and that would be none other than Mr. Ian Robertson. Welcome to Council Connections, sir.
Thank you, Mike. It's been 3 or 4 years since we started talking about some of the needs of the homeless, and particularly with the working poor, the veterans and seniors, and something more than just the typical homeless panhandler on the street.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you something, Ian. Those concepts, I think, are needed now more than ever. You know, one thing that I've thoroughly enjoyed about working on the City Council with my colleagues as well as Mayor Condon is the fact that we have not been afraid of thinking outside the box. And obviously with tiny homes, communities, what we've seen going on in our economy, even though we are seeing a economy that is roaring back by all appearances. And, I'll be the first one to raise my hand and affirm that the city in itself has seen record sales tax receipts, and it's been ongoing for some time. But there is going to come a time where that economy is going to slow down a little bit, and it's given us a little bit of an opportunity to breathe, to think through some concepts and things like this. The City Council just recently passed an ordinance which would now have the city engaged in land trusts, a concept that we were talking about 3 and 4 years ago.
Absolutely. In fact, real now, at this time, with you and with Ben's leadership there, we are seeing left and right actually working together to solve a real problem in our community.
Absolutely.
Unlike, you know who I'm talking about on the national scene there, and I'm more optimistic today than I've probably ever been because of what is happening now. The people that we are most concerned about, we call them the ALICE people. ALICE, Asset Limited Income Constrained Employee. That's United's ways saying the working poor,
yes.
Seniors. They barely getting by because they don't have enough money for the 5 basics: housing, food, child care, health care, and transportation. And
you betcha.
And there. Who is Alice? In the Pacific Northwest, we got 1.6 million. We got here's the numbers. In Spokane County, we got 68,000 struggling families. 800,000 in our state. Go over to Kootenai County, Coeur d'Alene, another 18,000. We got 1 million struggling families. These are the single mom with 2 kids. This is somebody working with 2 or 3 or 2 jobs, just trying to make ends meet. Paycheck away from homelessness there and those there. But when we think of the homeless, we can think of, here's the figures for Spokane City, 38,000 struggling families.
Yes.
This is the big thing. I know there's some people that are very visible on the street. Some may want to work, some may not want to work. But these are people who are doing their best to get out of being dependent on charity or dependent on government handouts, who want to stand on their own 2 feet. And they're the people that deserve our care and attention and all the help that we can get there. And these ALICE people, it affects housing, all the things. Poor housing is number 1. Number 2, it affects childcare and education and all of those areas. The impact on ALICE and the impact on the cost of the community and all of that. The third area is food. Not healthy food, not enough food and all of that. Transportation, number 4. The mess that we have, old cars, no insurance, and all of these things, people just trying to get by, struggling families.
Sure.
And there. And we just think of all of those things. It affects health and health care. the cost of all those things, boy, my goodness, you know, no insurance and trying to get by and trying to work the system and all of that kind of stuff. It affects income, you know, low wages, no wages, and lastly, it affects savings. You know, there's nothing to fall back on. And when you get more and more people, rents going up, there's no cushion, there's no assets. And so the whole thing is be able to get people where they can actually get own their own home. And this, what the city council is doing just right now, is absolutely tremendous. What triggers homelessness? You know, you got to realize half of it is loss of jobs or bills higher than expected. You know, and for those, you know, you think of maybe a panhandler, but let's think of a single mom with 2 kids. Should she get as much attention as the panhandler on the street should get?
Right.
I would say even more so, because it's trying and hurting and struggling to do their best. And for them, the answer is 2 things: permanent housing, reduce expenses, but help them build wealth-producing assets. With rents going up and up and up there, we can get them into home ownership opportunities there. But what about the others? People that have been evicted, abused, incarcerated, sick, divorced, drugs and all that. They're not ready for home ownership yet. And so there'll always be a need for temporary housing somewhere along there. A place where they can learn job skills, life skills, secure work, where healing can take place. But right now we're talking about villages right here that can, not just villages for the poor. We have segregated the poor over and over again the way we used to segregate different classes of people.
Sure.
On that. But that's the economic segregation that's going on today. And so basically I'm just saying Project Freedom. His 7th thing, we need to fund capital for aspiring homeowners. Restore responsibility, people that want to take responsibility to their own future. Not saying, well, everybody else owes me a living.
Sure. Well, and not only that, Ian, but I mean, you're also looking at the data. The data tells you that home ownership is, people have a different outlook on that property versus being a renter.
That's supposedly the American dream. When we came over to the city of Spokane and in Spokane Valley, it's almost 50% renting. And all of that. Educate the public. That's probably the biggest thing. It's not in my backyard, you know. No, we're not talking about cheap homes. We're talking about quality all the way through. Enlist volunteers and organizations. Well, I tell you, with Ben and your leadership in this area in the city, I'm more optimistic about the people, and I won't mention names here that I've got, well, I will. I got 25 high schools in Eastern Washington said we would like to help. And I got a former superintendent of schools said, I will coordinate that for you. We got Job Corps that would say we would come in. We've got technical schools that want to, you know, help with so many things. And I just, with the private, but the city is really giving the lead. Sustainable business solutions, operate various venues, and then we've got to move to regional transformation. It's not just City of Spokane solving everything itself, but just to take us all the way through all these things here. Go to slide number 20, would you? Just there. I'm going to skip some of the details. Oh, there we go. To understand, you got to understand these 3 things. T2M, total quality management. We're talking about. I was privileged to have a class from Dr. W. Edwards Deming, whom we sent to Japan after World War II to help them rebuild their economy. And he said, if you follow these principles, you can be number 1 in whatever industry you choose. 1950, the Japanese said the steel industry, Pittsburgh, never realized what happened. 1955, it was electronics. And we used Japanese words like, new words like Sony and all of those things there. And in 1960, their third 5-year program, automobiles. You know, they started with little ones and then they got bigger and bigger and bigger and all of that there. I say the same thing. We follow those same total quality principles that have worked in other countries and many places here, and we can solve the homelessness problem in Spokane and Spokane County now. Number 2, up there is BAM, and that stands for Business as Mission. And I just happen to have the BAM textbook written by my good friend Neil Johnson, who's been my number 1 business advisor on all of this stuff. Every social need presents a business opportunity. There's a fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. And we can capitalize on that here today, as they are doing, at least in one other place. And the third thing is ABCD. Well, that's Dr. Johnson. And that is asset-based community development. You'd never go in and say, hey, I got a wonderful plan, just follow my plan. No. You've got to listen to the people in the community, whether it's in the Hilliard or the Northwest or the South here on that. What are the needs? What are their needs? Listening to them, and with our architects and that. So, that's what we're doing. That's what Change Point. That's since I officially retired, and all that years and years ago. So I'm talking about SECOT, whatever, if you can pronounce it one way or the other. That stands for Spokane's Ecological Communities of Tomorrow. I got the idea, stole the idea. What's going on in Mississippi? The poorest 3 counties of the poorest state. They brought in $5.9 billion of investments following these principles. Government involved, 6,000 new jobs there, paying jobs. There's people there that are earning 3 times now what they were getting before this change happened. And we can, with the leadership that I see today in the Spokane City Council, this is a statement I'm making, Mike, with Ben and you, we've been talking about this forever. I can see the change coming here. The death of manufacturing is greatly exaggerated. Yokohama invested $500 million there. Now, we're not bringing them here. We're talking about different things here. Airbus, helicopters, and all of that.
But at the same token, we do have Public Development Authority operations here, 3 of them. And specifically, the West Plains Public Development Authority, as well as the Northeast Public Development Authority, could definitely benefit from
these principles,
companies
let's
relocating,
talk to them there.
Just like that.
But back there, they have a psychosis of poverty he was talking about.
Yes,
they
yes,
say, oh, we're poor, nothing can be done about it, we'll never be able to, have a decent way of living. No. Government, and this is what I said to you and to Ben, you provide shovel-ready property with the utilities and the right incentives. And there's enough private money available in our county now that can build all the housing that needs to be done for the working poor, for seniors, for veterans, and those that want to take responsibility for their own future there. The second thing, the schools there, and the schools here are doing the same thing. Training for the needs of the industries themselves. That is so important. What skills do you need to operate this SIP manufacturing facility here? We will train, we will give you the certificate.
Well, not only that, but what about the builders and the tradesmen that are involved in those building trades?
Yes, absolutely. And then the Golden Triangle, we would do all the rest there. That's what they're building. Look at that picture there. There. Nice. Poorest part of the poorest state. Look at that one. The investment there. This is not cheap stuff. Quality. Total quality. And he joked about, he says, we actually built something that flies. Airbus, European, build their planes over there. Where are they building their helicopters? Mississippi, USA. And I tell you, we can take those advantage of other similar there. That's our project over there. 35-acre campus there. Veterans housing. Veterans health care, medical care, medical foster homes. It's big back there. We've got to learn about it here in Spokane and be able to do that same kind of thing there.
Now reflecting back on that flying, the helicopter picture that you were showing there, it has to be about 5 years or so ago, the City Council did what we could through resolution to, promote aerospace industry here in the city of Spokane through community colleges, as well as West Plains. And we've seen a little bit of success in bringing some of that aerospace technology
Let me tell you, when I worked at Lockheed in California, Lockheed started 500 new companies. Most of them was one guy with one machine in his garage. Our overhead was so high we couldn't afford to do stuff when a plane was out of regular production. His overhead was so low, it was a great deal for him, and it was fantastic for Lockheed. We could do the same thing with Boeing and other companies like
you
that.
bet.
We know how to do it. We've done it in the past, and we could do it because you in the city council are giving the lead just now. When the government makes, here's my statement, when the government makes shovel-ready land available, that should be property available, it wasn't just land, but it's, we have private money to solve homelessness for low-income families.
Right.
Period. And that's where we're going on this. And so, SECO, we're talking about Spokane Eco Community of Tomorrow. There's got to be economic benefit. This is BAM business. Economic benefit, social benefit, environmental benefit, and spiritual benefit. And get a balance of those four. We have got a winner in this place. What do you think?
Oh, you bet. You bet. And as a matter of fact, we've been discussing that.
Yes, yeah.
There happens to be a piece of property there on North Nevada, and the council has definitely been having a bit of a discussion on some type of an eco-village or community, if you will, to
we want to
pilot.
see this. It's got to be mixed income. This is not just for poor people.
Sure, sure.
This is for people who are willing to work, willing to be a part of the solution, who want to take responsibility for their future. Those are the things there. It goes right in with the Growth Management Act without going into details, exactly what we've been talking about for decades. And I like this Hager the Horrible because he says, you know, insist you spend our tax money on the poor. I am, says the king, and we're sinking a fortune into dungeon construction. We are sinking a fortune into the poor, but is it doing any good? $22 trillion in the first 50 years of the war on poverty there. Poverty rate was going down till we started the war on poverty, and we're saying there's a better way to break it, and that is the business as mission approach there, where people work together. Jobs, economic development has to go in with community development. And the people I've been working with is absolutely exciting, exactly what's going on to them there. City provides that stuff, the schools provide that, and Change Point, and not just us, but Habitat for Humanity and other organizations that are really struggling with this. And the big thing is land costs have gone up, going up so much. Now, let me give you a personal thing. You know my wife. She has dementia. She's in a care facility now. I did as much as I could, till we were there. And I paying a good, I've got a pretty good deal. But then I get a notice that's saying we are increasing her monthly fee here an extra $2,400. I says, I don't have that money. And they give me the great, well, listen, if you divorced her, maybe the state would take it. Hey, that's not the language. I take responsibility on that. Well, 2,000, maybe could you afford 2,000? No, I don't. I'll take her home. 1,500, 1,500. We ended up settling for $200 more. And I got an agreement, that's for the rest of her life. And I realized I've been trying to get affordable housing for other people, and now I got to find affordable living for my own wife there.
Right.
Rent's going up and up and up. So I've got a personal stake in this whole thing.
Right.
And what we're saying that just needs to happen, that with God's help, we're going to do that. So I'm talking about pocket neighborhoods. Oh, man.
Sure.
Have you seen Ross Chabon's book, Pocket Neighborhoods? There, I'm going to loan that to you there. They're beautiful, all over there. No more poverty compounds. We have enough of those. No homeless camps.
Gentrification.
Gentrification. No plantation. No barracks-like apartment. We got plenty of those already for taking care of those that are on the streets. We want instead community land trusts, pocket neighborhoods, independent family, where it's mixed. Mixed income, age, ethnicity, lifestyle, politics, religion, and whatever way we can. Mixed skills, people work. That's the American way. And that's what we're started doing with that resolution that you city council members voted. I think it was 6-1, but we've got a good majority there, all of that. And there's a picture of that. Ross is a Washingtonian in his pocket neighborhoods there. So anyway, that's my story. And, we're leave it at that, and
Oh, you
thank
bet.
you there. Now, I do
Ian,
want to...
we do have just a couple of minutes left in this half here. Now, do you happen to have a slide that's got some contact information? For
Yeah, I
those,
just happen to have it, and if I can actually find the number what it is there, and I just see, and I've skipped over so much. I got always
you
more
bet.
and more material than I
While
could
you're
ever need
looking
there.
for that,
yeah,
you
let's
know,
go to
slide.
slide 45.
There we go.
Okay, that's my last
bet.
one.
You bet.
Mike,
Now,
I
you know-
appreciate you so much, and I appreciate what
you
the city
bet.
council is doing with challenges that were there. But that's, I tell you, just call me. That's my cell number right there, 509-389-3211. Text me, and we'll get somebody will get back to you, or even my email there.
Okay.
There's a lot more going on under the surface, as you and I know, than we're ready to publicize now. But this is the time when we can make Spokane a model, not only for the state of Washington, but even beyond.
Well, I'll tell you something, Ian. I, for one, definitely want to affirm that for sure. And in addition, ladies and gentlemen, you know, there's a couple of other things that we all need to be thinking about. You know, we are in the midst of what we call a senior tsunami right now. And believe it or not, this has been going on for the last 10 years, where we've got 10,000 people turning 65 years old every day. This is going to continue to happen for at least the next 15 years. Is government anywhere prepared for that? Are you anywhere prepared for that? You couple that with the lack of affordable housing, the situation that we're trying to work through currently, the issue of homelessness here in the city of Spokane as well as Spokane County. And I think it's become very imperative now. We need to have the private sector, the government sector, the nonprofit sector. We need to all come to the table. We need to all start getting this stuff out on the table, talking about it openly, and seeing what each other can do and can bring to the party, if you will. Now, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, again, definitely invite you to get in contact with Ian Robertson at that contact information there you see on your screen. We are going to be right back after a couple of minutes of break. When we do come back, again, we're going to be featuring a service dog issue. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Oh, sweetie. Okay, you know what? Let's take off his sweatshirt. Get rid of pictures of him. You don't have to look at him. Goodbye, Dave.
Mom, you don't understand. He's tagged in like 400 of my posts.
I can cut out tags.
No, that's not how it works.
What is a tag?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love to share their first with you.
Hi, Meals on Wheels.
I'm Marco. I'm a college student, and I volunteer as a driver for Meals on Wheels.
I think it's awesome meeting these people. I mean, they're so interesting. They've had so many wonderful experiences in life. Your community helps to raise you up into the person that you become. Meals on Wheels is a great way to give back to that community.
How do you see the world?
At Shriners Hospitals for Children, we know that changing how you see things can turn them into everyday miracles.
Like riding my bike.
Breaking boards. Hugging my mom.
Every day for over 90 years, Shriners Hospitals for Children has been sending love to the rescue, regardless of a family's ability to pay.
If you know a child we can help, call or go online now.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Hey, and welcome back in from the break, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I'm Councilmember Mike Fagan, District 1, Northeast Spokane. Welcome back to this month's Council Connection. And as well, like I said during the onset of the show, a council update. My next guest, her name is Laura Renz. She happens to be the CEO of a service dog organization here in Spokane County that has basically come together in the last couple of years. And what I wanted to do was to update everybody out there watching on some changes, implementation of a new law that the council just passed here in the last couple of weeks. So with that said, just a little bit of history. And what you're seeing there on your screen, folks, is a service dog, Chocolate Lab, by the name of Little One. And I've had the pleasure to get to know Little One here over the last couple of years. And, you know, it has been a couple of years since Laura and Little One, as well as a couple of other service dog handlers, approached the city council during a meeting to express their concern because they were having issues with accessibility. And that would be either being confronted while in a public place like a grocery store or doctor's office, some other type of an office setting, by other so-called service animals, if you will. Normally, those so-called service animals turn out to be family pets, maybe a therapy dog, an emotional support animal, and things like that, and that's all fine and good. But unfortunately, folks, you know, a secondary purpose for this council connection and update would be to serve as a little bit of information and education also. Currently, the Americans with Disabilities Act is the law that basically regulates service dogs and handlers and what it is that the general public can do with regard to accessibility issues. And through the Department of Justice back in the 80s, the ADA had received some additional definition that actually identified service animals as being dogs or miniature horses. And you know, while you're picking yourself up off the floor, because I know you're dying of laughter hearing about miniature horses, you know, if you think about it, folks, one of the first animals to become ADA recognized as a service animal was that miniature horse because they are very smart, highly trainable. They can be housebroken. I do know of several folks that have them as pets, believe it or not. As well, they are very robust and sturdy enough that they can hold an adult's weight. Then the idea of service dogs came to the ADA, and that was acceptable. The ADA recognized that people would suffer from both external as well as internal illnesses and things like that. And for instance, when you see a larger service dog, and you can definitely tell the difference between a service dog, an ESA, the family pet, and things like that, because service dogs on purpose do have a very high level and long-term amount of training and discipline that they do go through. As a matter of fact, the service dog that you see lying on the floor is doing exactly as she was trained to do, and that is basically standing at the feet of the service dog handler while the service dog handler remains stationary. So you'd be amazed at how many service dogs you may very well encounter in restaurants nowadays, but you would never know it because the service dogs are doing their duty underneath the table, unbeknownst to you know, the general public. Well, these service dog handlers came to us as individuals and pointed out the fact that there were some state laws that provided protection to service dog handlers, guide dogs for the blind, and things like this. And several years ago, when Councilmember Karen Stratton put together Title 18 Municipal Code that involved human rights and discrimination statutes here in the city of Spokane, we grabbed all of the municipal code pertaining to service animals, guide dogs for the blind, etc., and assimilated them all into Title 18. Well, last summer, I happened to be looking at what the state legislature had just finished doing, And the thing that kind of grabbed my attention was the fact that the legislature had just passed a House bill which provided a penalty for anyone who was misrepresenting a service animal. The state law does carry forward the ADA definition of a service animal to be a dog or miniature horse. And as well, it did provide some guidelines as to what it is that an individual could be asked per ADA policy. And there are two specific questions that can be asked, and we'll learn what those two questions are here in just a couple of minutes. Obviously, if I was a store manager, I asked the two questions, I got the right answer, then I take it on their honor that what we are dealing with is an actual service dog or service animal, if you will. That animal is allowed entry until the team, if you will, involving the service dog handler as well as the service dog, proves through behavior that this does not have the traits, the discipline level, et cetera, of a service dog, then that team could be asked to leave the premises. The service dogs and the teams that I've encountered over the last several years do engage in a very, very high level of training. These teams are out in the public. You see a lot of them, more so than not, in your malls, both out in the valley as well as here in Northtown. And what they're doing is they are disciplining and further training the service animals to do what I call defensive dogging. Now, after you pick yourself up off the floor after hearing that, what I'm referring to specifically is, believe it or not, folks, when I say defensive dogging, I'm actually referring to defensive driving techniques. And that is looking out for the other guy, trying to learn to go about anticipating for the unexpected. And there's a lot of training and discipline that goes into the service animals, and it is just a real sad thing to see all of that training and that discipline just fly out the window when a service animal who is doing their duty and providing that service to the handler, again, fly out the window because that animal gets accosted by another animal who's gained access under fraudulent means, mind you. And let's say your service dog gets bit on the snout. Let's say the service dog gets injured even worse. Can you imagine being out on the sidewalk and you have your service dog, and let's say you've got limited sight, things like that, limited mobility, and you're out there and you get accosted by somebody who is, again, perpetuating a family pet as a service dog. I would imagine that that could become a pretty scary situation for anybody. So anyway, folks, with all of that history, I thought it was a good idea to consider assimilating or syncing up, if you will, with the state House bill that just recently got passed. This House bill provided for a penalty schedule. It was specific to misrepresentation of a service animal. Did make very clear that service animals were to be dogs and miniature horses. And by syncing up with the state law, the City Council went ahead and unanimously voted a couple of weeks ago to make that so. The state law does go into effect the beginning of 2019, and as well, the passing of the ordinance was very timely because after passage, the ordinance will go into effect 30 days from now. Primary investigative authority on this would be the likes of our regional animal control authority, and that would be the likes of SCRAPS. So with all of that background said, I'd like to go ahead and turn the mic over to Laura Rentz. She's got a short PowerPoint presentation to show everybody out there, to kind of give everybody an idea of what has sprung up from her effort as an individual bringing this particular accessibility issue to the Spokane City Council. So with that, welcome, Laura.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet.
I'm Laura Renz. I started the Northwest Service Dog Alliance after this dog was attacked, I had already lost my second dog, my German Shepherd, Vinny. He had been on the job for 1.5 years, and he had a string of unfortunate events in a week. He had 3 instances of other dogs coming at him and several people.
Sure.
The drive-by pettings, people want to pet them. That's usually not that big of a deal, but it was too much for him. And after 6 more months of trying to train it out, it didn't work. So I started this organization to help people, and it's been fantastic. Service dog handlers have 2 issues. One is access. They get denied entry, and that happens more often than not if people, the gatekeepers, don't think the dogs are real service animals. And that's one issue where people think that this new ordinance is going to affect them, and it shouldn't. It should be actually more helpful if the dog's not labeled a service dog. My suggestion is for people to just say, hi, this is a service dog, tell them what it's there to do, and then proceed if they don't want to label the dog.
Now, I hate to interrupt, but let me illustrate something else here for you folks. I'm sure that you've all, if you've been in the grocery store, the doctor's office, et cetera, you've definitely seen this. You've got your Fifi on a stick, as I illustrated the night of the vote. You also have those folks that consider emotional support being given by the likes of frogs, turtles, snakes, chickens. I've even heard stories about peacocks being brought into the grocery store, things like that. Once again, in syncing up with the state law, we have made the definition of service animal as dog or miniature horse only. I can tell you from the efforts of both the Northwest Service Dog Alliance, the nonprofit organization that you founded, Laura, immediately after we passed Title 18, a lot of doctor's offices, dentist's offices, grocery stores, you folks saw great big signs at the entrances and whatnot of these grocery stores now recognizing service animals as being welcome. And then obviously in the small print you probably saw a little bit of a warning, but again, the grocery stores and other public accommodations, commercial accommodations that we have recognize the importance of access by the disability community.
Exactly, and the best thing is to find a sign. We make a lot of signs for a lot of the smaller businesses. Service animals welcome. We don't want it to say no this or no that, because that's negative, and we try to found everything on a positive note. So service animals welcome, and then of course the small print would go on there. But we want to make sure the service dog handlers know that their accessibility is first and foremost. Second is being accosted by the dogs pretending to be service dogs.
Sure.
We hate the word fake.
Right, right. Now, you know, the ADA says no registries, no licensing, no certifications, no ID cards, okay? I get all of that. And I do know that people do have access to service dogs through nonprofit organizations that, again, you'd have to be suitable for that service dog in order to get help from the nonprofit. I do know that there are people that find suitable service dogs that they have a connection to, and they self-train. But either way you look at it, if you're looking at it from a standpoint that time equates to money, I mean, how much time and how much money is normally involved in training and disciplining service dogs? And again, I understand it would be different and maybe even more costly dependent upon what it is that the service dog is being trained to do. But I understand it's thousands of dollars.
It can be. If you're training with a trainer, like I do, a private trainer, that's called owner training, and that doesn't mean you take the dog and go train it yourself. You're usually training under the direction of a trainer. That can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 out of your pocket through a program. Like you said, if they donate the dog, those trainers through the program still spend anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 training. A guide dog for the blind generally has about $50,000 worth of training into it. Right. And those dogs are provided free of charge to the disabled people.
Right.
So 18 months to 2 years of training go into those dogs, and they're usually about a 2-year wait to get. The veterans programs usually have a dog provided free of charge as well. And these specific trainings, most of what those trainings are is obedience. They have to be able to hang out like this, and if a dog comes running through here right now, she'll just stare at them. But they can't react.
Right.
And that's
You
so
bet.
hard.
Well, you know, it's my understanding also that some teams do train to at least provide an alert bark or some means to alert, you know, especially when they, you know, do encounter another animal that might be in the area. But it's my understanding also that that is done just to basically send the message that, hey, I'm working. Leave me alone.
They can. Most of the teams are taught that a bark alert isn't that appropriate, so most of them are trying to train out of it just because it's loud in public.
Again, it's part of that defensive dogging thing.
Right.
Yes,
right.
yes, and the etiquette that's involved.
Yes, it's kind of rude. They try to do more like a paw or even a little woofle, but any noise that the dogs make in public can be construed as, is that appropriate? Is that dog barking? Is that dog going to growl?
Sure.
And a lot of the shopkeepers or other people are afraid of that. So, you know, especially if it's a big dog. And so the teams are trying to train the dogs not to make noise.
Right,
So
right.
seen and not heard.
You bet. Well, you know, going back to my comment about the internal and external ailments, if you will, you know, when you see a smaller dog that's close to chest, and that smaller dog, you're claiming that smaller dog is a service animal, well, just know, ladies and gentlemen, that service dogs can be trained to smell blood sugar levels. With regard to anxieties, PTSD, things like this, sweat coming through the pores. And animals can be trained to detect that changes in that body chemistry. And this is the reason why you see both service dogs that are 4 on the floor. Again, obviously, they're large. You're not going to be hauling them around. And then, as well, you've got the close to chest. I've seen service dogs be the small, tiny, furry ones to the dachshunds, you know, and I've seen guys have dachshunds just strung around their neck, just like they would do, you know, a Bluetooth telephone setup, you know. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. Now, you do have some slides.
Yes.
So we definitely want to get through those. Just kind of give everybody a little bit of an idea of who Northwest Service Dog Alliance is. And again, folks, this is the nonprofit that's basically come out of Laura Rentz and, you know, some of those individuals that appeared a couple of years ago in front of the Spokane City Council.
And it started with you, actually. I asked for
advice.
Yeah, and I got it. And I thank you very much for that. But this is our organization. We like to embark change, one dog at a time. That came from you, Mike Fagan. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We were established about a year, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, you betcha.
And we are dedicated to service dog teams. We're dedicated to businesses, anything service dog related. It's something we can help you with. It doesn't matter.
Bet. And you know, another thing that I need to add here, folks, is when they say that they're dedicated to the community, dedicated to business, it's all about the training and education. I know, because I've signed the letters thanking these businesses, that Laura and her organization has been in the likes of grocery stores, office settings, doctor's offices, and have offered to those GMs, those CEOs, the staff members, education and information free of charge.
Yep, we will provide training free of charge to your office. We do it in a positive way so that if you have a situation with customers, with a service dog, you can help them without offending them or making them mad. You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to have an issue with a service dog team. You should be able to handle it and make reasonable arrangements. We have a pretty good understanding of the laws and ordinances out there. We're not experts because nobody is. We have to look things up.
And you know, for some strange reason, ADA definitely made that so, because they have their policy is very, very, very loose.
Yeah, and that's the guideline is the Americans with Disabilities Act. Yeah. A disabled person is allowed to go wherever you are, yep. And we're allowed to be accompanied by an assistance animal. The RCWs are the Revised Codes of Washington. They state what is unfair and what isn't. Layla's Law, interfering with a service dog, is actually a misdemeanor. That means don't come up and start poking the dog. If we ask you to stop, please do. The House bill that was passed is Washington State. The city ordinance that was just passed is in line with that. It just says, please don't misrepresent your pet. If you do, you're going to get a fine. And resources, we use the Washington State Human Rights Commission. There's also a local chapter. They're pretty knowledgeable on the service dog information through Title 18. The ADA network, that goes through the Department of Justice as well. That tells you where the dogs are allowed, which is everywhere pretty much except a sterile environment, which a lot of places are confused on that. We were denied access last week at a place that thought it was sterile. It wasn't. If you're denied access, leave. Call us. We can handle most of them. We suggest not throwing a media fit, not going on Facebook. Most of the time it's a lack of communication, and the manager of this place was very upset that her employees denied us, and we worked it out, and it was inconvenient for me, but the employees are now well versed in what's a sterile environment and what's not.
Right, you bet. And as well, ladies and gentlemen, since we're on the subject of sterile environment, meaning medical, just know that if you do have a service dog, a service animal, and you are going to have to participate in a stay at the hospital, the hospital staff have no obligation whatsoever to take care of the service animals. So, that being said, the likes of Northwest Service Dog Alliance is there to help out. So definitely consider them as a resource. They're not only there to educate and inform, but if you get yourself in a bind because you've got to make a stay in a hospital or whatever the case may be, they can definitely help out in taking care of your service animal while you stay.
Yeah, we've been able to line up several foster cares. We're trying to get a bigger network for that, but it takes time, and I've been doing 95% of everything, and it's a little tiring, but I haven't been able to work due to the nature of the work I used to do, so I can do this. This is mostly talking and running around, and
you betcha.
I can do it.
You betcha.
This is a chart of the 3 types of support animals. Service dogs.
Yes, this is a very important chart for sure.
This is where people get confused. A therapy dog goes to facilities like St. Luke's or schools if they give comfort to a lot of people. You don't have a therapy dog. You don't have a therapy dog that goes with you because that's just not how it works. You might have a comfort dog, and those are allowed for housing and flying, but they don't get to go in public with you. It's for a psychiatric disability that's prescribed through a counselor or a psychiatrist. And they don't have public access rights, but they can go anywhere that's pet friendly. And then, of course, the service animal is allowed anywhere a disabled person is allowed, except the burn units, food, where food is prepared. Where food is served is fine. And a lot of restaurants where there's some communication issues or language barriers, that is generally where people run into issues because the other cultures don't understand what is and what isn't. So that's where we've done a lot of education as well. And it's just bringing in the paperwork, sitting down, explaining things, and then they say, okay, I understand, thank you.
You betcha.
But this is a great chart. We printed out a lot.
Good, good. Well, I'll tell you something, Laura. Going back to the, I'm just curious here. You got something in these boxes?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
And it had something to do with my comment about Fifi on a stick, the snakes, the turtles, the parrots and whatnot that you see running around. So.
Well, do you put up a Christmas tree each year?
Oh, I believe we do something
do?
like that. You betcha.
Well, I didn't want Fifi on a stick to be lonely. So this, by the way, is a little one when she was a puppy.
Oh, you betcha.
Yeah, she came with me today. I didn't want Fifi on a stick to be lonely, so you now have Rover on a rope.
Okay, Rover on a rope, folks. There you go.
Yeah. But
all right.
Do you put up a Christmas tree at City Hall?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
You betcha.
That's fantastic.
Definitely going to go on the Christmas tree for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
So you also have Bowser in a box for City Hall. So
All right.
This is Bowser in a box. This one I thought would be very nice for City Hall.
Oh my goodness, that one is almost like Fifi on a stick.
You can put that one on a stick.
Well, there you go, folks.
So yeah, I thought those would be very, very nice for you.
Yeah,
Considering
very
you brought
cute, very
Fifi
cute.
on a stick to City Council meeting. At some service dogs wear outfits. We have one lady in our group with a Chihuahua. The Chihuahua is very well trained, and the smaller dogs get carried sometimes simply for the handler's sake,
Sure.
so they don't see them. This little dog, she makes dresses for, and she puts them in fashion shows. And when she does that, the dog's not working, it's off duty, and the dog has a different demeanor. When she puts the vest on the dog goes back to work.
Wow.
And she actually has little outfits that look like that. It's adorable.
Wow, that really speaks volumes to the level of training and discipline that these dogs do.
It's amazing. And she's just a tiny little thing. She puts on her vest, she works. Takes off the vest, puts on a dress. She's a fashion diva.
Wow.
I wish I had a picture of her. She's
wow,
just,
that's amazing.
she looks exactly like the one on the right. So, but it's amazing
yeah,
what
you
they do.
bet.
And I take her vest off. She's a dog.
You bet. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This month's Council Connection, again, talking a little bit about what's happening in tiny homes, eco-village concept that we've been kicking around for the last 4 years or so. It looks like we're making some headway, big time there. And as well, accessibility rights for the disabled. Very, very big for me. And I've definitely been honored and privileged to have helped out in some way, for sure.
We're very thankful you have.
You bet.
No idea.
We really appreciate the ornaments. These definitely are going to go on the city Christmas tree for sure. And that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you know, you folks can reach out to me at any time. You can dial me up at 625-6257. You can send me an email at mfagan@spokanecity.org. All of that said, I hope that you folks have a wonderful holiday, a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you after the New Year.